Before we start installing JupyterLab, it's important to understand what we are actually building. This is not just a notebook environment on a GPU server. We are turning a raw GPU machine into a full working environment for machine learning, where users can access JupyterLab through a browser, run GPU workloads, and work in an isolated multi-user setup with resource limits and proper system control. In this video, we will set up JupyterLab on a GPU server, configure NVIDIA drivers, prepare Python environment, enable multi-user access through JupyterHub, and secure everything for production use. We start by connecting to the server via SSH. We use the command SSH root and the IP address of the server. The system then asks whether we trust the server, and we confirm by typing yes. In our case, this prompt does not appear because we have already connected before. It only appears on the first connection. After that, we enter the server password and successfully log in. Before installing the GPU driver, we first verify that the GPU is visible to the system and that secure boot will not interfere. For this initial check, we run 3 commands. The first command detects the GPU and shows its full model name. We can see GA102 architecture, ampere generation, which corresponds to the RTX 3090. The second line shows an audio device, which is normal because GPUs include an audio controller for HDMI output, and it is not related to compute workloads. The second command confirms that secure boot is disabled. This is important because the NVIDIA kernel module is compiled directly on the machine, and if secure boot were enabled, the module would not load after reboot and the GPU would disappear. The line about setup mode means that platform keys are not installed, so there are no restrictions. The third command shows that NVIDIA SMI is not found, which is expected because the driver is not installed yet. The same command after installation will show GPU model, driver version, and memory usage. The fourth command shows the current kernel version, which is important because the driver module is compiled specifically for it. If the kernel is updated later without rebuilding the module, the GPU may stop working after reboot. Before installing anything, we prepare the system. We update packages, set the time zone, create users, and enable the firewall. The order is important because an unprotected system exposed to the internet can be scanned within minutes. We execute the commands shown on screen. Now we move to the most critical step, installing the NVIDIA driver. This is the riskiest part of the setup because the server may temporarily lose network access after installation, so console access must be available beforehand. We install the driver from the official NVIDIA repository, not from third-party sources or installer files. The repository is added, the package is selected, and the installation begins. We are using NVIDIA open drivers with open kernel modules, which are the recommended option for modern GPUs starting from Turing and newer. Ampere, including our RTX 3090, is fully supported. The unknown label simply means the repository is not tied to the Ubuntu codename and is not an error. After installation, we reboot the server and wait for it to come back online. Then we reconnect via SSH and run NVIDIA SMI. In newer versions, the output has changed. Instead of a single simple table, we now see 3 fields: the utility version, kernel module version, and the maximum CUDA version the driver supports. That last field is often mistaken for the installed CUDA toolkit. We then see GPU details: 24 GB of VRAM, low memory usage, temperature around 32, power consumption around 11 watts out of 350, and P8 power state, which means idle mode. We also optionally enable a setting that keeps the driver loaded between sessions, so the GPU does not reinitialize after idle periods. At this point, most tutorials would install the full CUDA toolkit, but we do not need it. PyTorch brings its own CUDA dependencies through NVIDIA-provided packages. The system only needs the driver, which is already installed. The full CUDA toolkit is only required if you compile custom CUDA kernels or build software from source. Next, we install Python and create a virtual environment. A common mistake occurs when trying to install packages into the system Python. The system blocks it with an error saying the environment is externally managed. This is not a bug, but a protection mechanism introduced by PEP 6 Season 68. The system Python is managed by the OS Package Manager, and modifying it directly can break system tools in unpredictable ways. The error message lists correct solutions, using system packages via APT, using a virtual environment, or using tools like PyPX. We choose the virtual environment approach and create it. Now we verify GPU access using PyTorch. We run a simple test script, and the result confirms that everything works correctly. PyTorch is installed with CUDA support, the GPU is detected successfully, and the RTX 3090 is visible to the system. We also see that PyTorch automatically installed multiple NVIDIA CUDA-related libraries, including BLAS, CUDNN, FFT, and sparse computation libraries, totaling around 2 GB of dependencies. Importantly, the system itself does not have the QDA toolkit installed, and NVCE is missing, yet the GPU works perfectly. With the GPU confirmed, we install the rest of the environment: NumPy, Pandas, Matplotlib, and scikit-learn, plus IP kernel, the Git extension, and mbdime for notebook diffs. NumPy is worth a note here because modern PyTorch no longer pulls it in as a required dependency, which is exactly what that earlier warning was about. The last command registers the kernel, so this environment appears as a separate option when creating a notebook. To install JupyterHub, we first need Node, because the hub relies on a separate proxy that rewrites user routes on the fly. And this is where something unexpected happens. Installing npm from the Ubuntu repository pulls in 538 packages and 494 megabytes, including Vulkan drivers, Mesa OpenGL libraries, fonts, and a graphical terminal emulator, on a server that has no monitor and never will. The reason is that the npm package drags in the entire JavaScript toolchain together with recommended dependencies, while all we actually need from it is a single proxy. This can be avoided with the no install recommends flag, or by installing Node from the Node source repository. With Node in place, we install and configure JupyterHub so multiple users can access the GPU through a browser. We install and start JupyterHub with minimal configuration. On first launch, it runs in the terminal and shows log output, including warnings about missing configuration, cookie signing keys, and SSL reverse proxy recommendations. To access JupyterLab, we create an SSH tunnel from the local machine and open the browser. We try to log in but receive an invalid username or password error. We stop the service and adjust the configuration using additional commands. After restarting, login works successfully. The issue was not the password. Authentication itself succeeded. The failure happened at the authorization step, where Jupyter checks whether the user is in the allowed list. In version 5 and above, an empty allow list blocks all users. Older versions allowed access by default. This change was introduced for security reasons because open access combined with external authentication could lead to unintended exposure. The error message is identical in both cases, which often misleads administrators into checking credentials instead of configuration. The real cause is visible in the logs. Next, we test GPU access from within Jupyter notebooks. We run a Python ML kernel and confirm that the GPU is available. Then we log in as a second user who has no GPU assigned and works on the CPU. To show the limits of this approach, the first user overrides the environment variable from inside the notebook and loses access to the card. This proves that GPU assignment is a distribution mechanism, not hardware isolation. After that, we configure resource limits. Without limits, a single user can consume all system memory and take down everyone else's sessions. We set memory and CPU quotas inside JupyterHub and test the behavior under load. When the process reaches the 8 GB limit, the operating system terminates it through C groups, and the browser reports the kernel as dead without naming the reason. This confirms that resource isolation is working at the operating system level. We then convert JupyterHub into a system service. Initially, it enters a restart loop due to port conflicts, but after cleaning up processes and fixing configuration, the service starts successfully. We verify that it remains running even after closing the terminal. Next, we place Nginx in front of JupyterHub so it can be accessed via a normal browser URL instead of an SSH tunnel. At this stage, access works via IP address, but it is still unencrypted and passwords are transmitted in plain text. To secure the system, we configure a domain and DNS-A record, verify propagation, install certbot, and issue an SSL certificate. After configuration, HTTPS is enabled. We verify certificate details, validity period, file paths, and automatic renewal settings. Finally, we configure backups. We show that the home directories total about 8 GB, while the backup is only around 348 KB. Because dependencies are not stored, they are reproducible with a single install command. We schedule automatic backups using a system timer so the process runs without manual intervention. At the end, we have a fully working GPU server with JupyterLab accessible via browser, multi-user support, per-user resource limits, scheduled backups, HTTPS secured access, and a stable service configuration. The setup takes a working day, and a significant part of that time goes into downloading packages. We intentionally covered the most common failure points, including system Python restrictions, Jupyter authorization rules, service restart loops, and port conflicts. Deploy your own GPU server and build a fully configured JupyterLab environment in minutes. The link is in the description.